Today I show what my work nowadays amounts to using Claude Sonnet 4.6 in Visual Studio Code with GitHub Copilot. I have a working app and I'm now refining. I'm doing incremental development with user stories. And typically I do 5 steps. The first is to write a new user story. Sometimes I do that myself, and sometimes I write a sketch and ask Claude to generate it for me. Here's an example. On the left, auto run on search page. As a user, I want the search page that already exists to automatically run a search when I navigate to it so that I can immediately see relevant results without having to click the search button. People ask for these things. So it's simply next to what's already there, there is now going to be this checkbox. I have acceptance criteria for them, and there are 4. There's a checkbox, of course, and I need to say that it exists. I have to say that what value it has by default for new users. Then I need to also make sure that the value that the user selects is stored in local storage, which is under user settings. And then there is a fourth, when the user navigates to the search page, if the auto run checkbox is checked, a search is automatically executed. So this is how it actually works. Now, the second step that I do is to start a new chat so that I have a clear context. And then on the third step is to review the story and assess whether it's ready for implementation. This is to eliminate ambiguities. Now, in this case, the feature is so simple that I didn't make any mistakes and there were no ambiguities. So pretty quickly it says the story is ready for implementation. Here's the assessment, and it echoes back on what it understands, so I can verify that its understanding is correct. And then it already says what infrastructure has already been put in place because the search page already existed. And then it says what changes are needed. This is all very good feedback to me as a human reviewer to see whether it understands what I wanted to do. So no ambiguities, ready to implement. And then I ask in the fourth step, follow the story implementation requirements to implement the auto run on search page user story starting from step 0. Why such a lengthy prompt? Why not simply say implement the story? Well, here's a screenshot of a previous chat that I had where it went wrong because the 5th step in my whole process of 10 steps is actually the implementation. And I had called that step implement. But before that, there are all kinds of other things like kill the application if it is running, execute all existing tests, check that there are no ambiguities, again, because I could have forgotten that previous step. And afterwards, I ask things like generate all the tests and do you have any product ideas that I could use in the future? So, as I said, the 5th step was called implementation. And the first 80 times I ran this, it all went well. And somewhere around the 80th attempt, it jumped over everything and just immediately went to implementing it. So it ignored the process, even though it had done it over 80 times correctly. So then I interrupted and it said, what should I have said to make you do all the required steps, not just the implementation, step 5? And then you get this really puzzling answer. Honestly, you shouldn't need to say anything different. When you say implement the X user story, I should always read the story implementation requirements first and follow all 10 steps. The most reliable prompt would be follow and so on, the one that I use now. But ideally, the word implement alone should trigger that behavior, since the roadmap, which I get pointed to by Copilot instructions, explicitly points to the story implementation requirements as the process for all implementation work. So now you know why I use this excessive prompt. Okay, then it goes through everything, no open ambiguities, the process is not running, all tests pass, and then it goes through these four acceptance criteria, and it appends it to the file of all acceptance criteria in the application, and then it suggests product ideas and writes the code. That's the step 5. And then it continues with tests. Apply general, write the tests, whatever else it does, and then it's finished after a while. All 1787 tests pass, 4 new tests added for the new 4 acceptance criteria, update store logs and the user manual, and then it spits out some decisions it made that I can check. And okay, here it becomes interesting because I still have to do my step 5 in this whole process, which is to verify that the results are correct. And only then did I see that I had forgotten an acceptance criterion. So I echoed it back to it. It looks like there is no acceptance criterion for the case that a user has unchecked the checkbox, and refreshed the page. Do you agree? And what else? Yes, you're right. We need that. So good. It understands. Then it fixes that and creates 4 new tests. And what I had actually expected is that it would also add this here, but it didn't do that. So again, I have to be still alert, still verify what it does, because sometimes it doesn't do what you would expect it to do. But of course, this process is far, far more efficient and fast than if I had to do all this by myself. And just for completeness, here's me asking to add that acceptance criterion to the story, and you can see here on the left on line 12 that it has done so.